Welcome to Introduction to Spreadsheets. This is for the Level 2 course, and this really is a beginner's guide today. So let's start off by having a look around the basic sheet and getting a sort of idea of the layout. At the top here we've got the menu bar. This is where you can open and close information. We're not going to really look at much of these things today. I'm just sort of showing you how all the layout works. Underneath the menu bar we've got these. This is referred to as the toolbar. It refers not to these little icons here, okay, which some of you are probably familiar with from other applications. So, for example, the one I've got highlighted here is print. Okay, so these are just shortcuts. So you can either click this button, or the longer way of doing it, we come up to File, click once there, come down to Print, click again there. So each of these is just a one-click method for accessing the same information. While I'm here, if we notice that at the bottom of this menu we see these double down arrows, and as I hovered over them for a split second, you don't even have to click. As soon as you hover over them, they open up to reveal the full depth of everything that's in the menu. So, and once you've done it once, it keeps them all open. Okay. What you see before that is a sort of a short version of what Excel guesses you might like to use, the sort of most common features. Okay. So we've got one set of toolbars here. We've actually got another set of toolbars on the right hand side, and again we have access to things that we're going to use quickly, such as the type of font we're using. This is the font size. We've got bold, italic, underline, so ways of formatting that particular font. And we'll look at some more of these in a moment. So that's the toolbar. Then underneath this little FX symbol, this is referred to as the formula bar, which you can see highlighted there. We're not really going to cover that much today, but we will do a lot of that next week. Then we've got the main worksheet here. And the worksheet is comprised of lots of these individual cells. Okay, these are called cells. Okay, and there are many cells. I believe there's I think there's 256 columns. So here is a column. This is column D. Okay, and there are 256 of these columns, and there are also rows. So here I am highlighting row 6. There are far more rows than columns, and if I just look on my bit of paper here, because I had to write it down because it's such a big number, there are 65,536 possible rows. We're not going to be writing anything or doing anything that big today, so that's a vast spreadsheet. You know, 65,000 is a hell of a lot. So we've got, so the idea there is we've got the idea of rows and columns. Okay. Some people sometimes get confused over which is which. You can often think of columns. You know, you get columns outside of buildings like pillars and columns, and they're always vertical. Okay, columns hold the house up. So that's it. Just the way I remembered it at first was columns are vertical and rows aren't. But you only have to remember one of them, and then you know what the other one is. So columns and pillars, they're vertical. Okay. If we come, so what at the moment we're looking at one worksheet. Okay, everything we can see on the screen, all this stuff I'm dragging around, this is a worksheet. Okay, down the whole document is called a workbook. Okay, and we can see at the top here it says Microsoft Excel Book 1. So you can think of a book as containing many pages, many sheets of paper. Okay, and that's the same way that spreadsheets work. Okay, we've got many sheets of paper. Okay, so I can come in, so you can see on sheet 1 down here, in the bottom left hand corner, I've written the word Introduction to Spreadsheets, whereas on sheet 2, another page in our workbook, there's no information there. Okay, and we can have many pages, and this just helps, it helps so that we can just have things that just either that aren't related to each other, that we can keep on different pages, or just to make it more manageable. I mean, like I said, we've got those 65,000 rows, but if you've got to scroll down to 40,000 rows to find something, it's not going to be very user friendly. Okay, so although the data is spread out over the sheet, okay, spreadsheets, it's sometimes a lot easier to go to a different sheet to find the information rather than having it all on one spreadsheet and hidden right down at the bottom. So one of the first things that anybody needs to do once you've got a spreadsheet is you may need to open one or save one. Okay, so opening and saving, just like many other programs, is done from the File menu, or it's one way you can access it. So I've created this one here called Introduction to Spreadsheet. So I'm going to go up to File, and I'm going to choose Save As. Okay, and I'm going to give it a name. So I'm just going to call this Test. I'm going to make a note of where I've saved it. So this is in My Documents. Okay, and I'm just going to hit Save. And there we go, that's saved it. I actually think I opened a folder. Let me just do that one more time for you. So I'm going to go up to choose Save As. I'll go up one level. Yeah. So just a little note on how this system works. If you can see here, this box here at the moment says Save. If I select a folder, then that button changes to Open. Okay, because it assumes that you want to open that folder to save the work inside of that folder. Okay, so that's what happened there for 1 second. So I've gone ahead and saved that. Okay. Okay, so once I've saved something once, I can then use, if I wanted to, on the toolbar, the little quick save icon. And that will allow me to, every time I hit that, it will overwrite my previous saved version and update it with a newer version. If you've got a spreadsheet and you wanted to open it, then you would just turn on Excel. You can generally double click it and it will launch Excel, but if you're already within Excel, then you can choose the open function, navigate to wherever the spreadsheet is. See, I've got 2 here, and then choose open. But we're not going to do that. So let's start off by, so the other thing is, so we've had a look at it. What are they actually used for, spreadsheets? So they're used for a whole variety of different things, but I like to think of them essentially as a giant calculator. Okay, then at their heart, you've generally got some type of mathematics going on. You can use them just to manage lists, lists of information, and they do a very good job of that. But generally, there's some sort of mathematical calculation going on. So it could be a budget. You could use it for so you can use them for, like I mentioned, lists, accounting, budgeting, timesheets, databases, to some degree. Lots of different varieties of uses for them. And so what can you put in them? So as you can see, we've got some text up here. Okay, so we've written Introduction to Spreadsheets. We can also have numbers. Okay, and we can also insert pictures. Okay, so if I just very quickly show you how I'm going to do that, I'm going to choose Insert from File. I'm going to navigate to my desktop, and then I've got a pound sign here, or a bag with a pound sign on it. Okay, I'm just going to close this little. So what happens is, like we discussed, that this is a toolbar here. Well, we've had a pop-up happen because we've clicked on something, and so as you can see, as I select the picture, and you can tell the picture's selected because of the circles around the outside. As I select the picture, we get a pop-up toolbar. Okay, so just like these toolbars along here, and they're called context specific. Okay, so this is just to do with picture editing. We're not actually going to look at what it does, but if that bothers you, you can press the little X and close it goodbye, or indeed it will just disappear when you deselect the picture. Okay, so just for the start for today, we're only going to look at inserting these 3 different. Just know that we can put in 3 different types of information. We can also put in hyperlinks. We can embed objects from other applications. but we don't want to get too complicated. But generally, most spreadsheets, I would say, consists of words, numbers, some images, some logos, something like that, and formulas. Okay. Now, formulas are anything to do with the basic calculations. Okay. So at the moment, there's no calculations going on whatsoever. But I'm just going to do an example of one. Now, you can type in any words you want into spreadsheets. You can type in any word, or you can type in any numbers. Okay, doesn't really matter. When you type in a formula, when you want it to do a calculation, we're going to do a really basic one. We're going to do 2 plus 2. Okay. Now, when you were at school, you would write 2 plus 2 equals, and then you would calculate the answer. And you put it down as 4. Yeah. The only thing you need to remember on a spreadsheet is that a formula starts with equals. What you're going to say is that this cell, so we've got all these different cells here, this cell equals whatever I'm about to say. So I'm going to say this cell equals 2 plus 2. And because this is a giant calculator, we don't have to work out the answer. We just put in 2 plus 2, and when I press return or move to another cell, we can see that the answer is displayed as 4. And now we get to understand what the formula bar does. So the cell shows us the number 4, it shows us the result of our formula, or our calculation, or our sum, or whatever. And if we look up to the formula bar up here, we can see the actual contents of the cell, what is making it produce that answer for us. So we can see that we're saying that this cell equals 2 plus 2. So that's the key thing. Whenever you want it to do any sort of sum, any calculation, and they can be big sums, I can do 123 times is the star key, typically above the number 8 on your keypad. I can do that times 456, which, is a gigantic answer. 56,088. Oh no, I was thinking that was similar to the number of rows, but the number of rows is 65,000. So the key thing is equals, and then type in your sum. 23 plus 12. Okay? We're not going to look at any formulas in any more depth, but just so you know that you can type anything into a cell, but the only thing you can't start with is the equals character, because then it will assume you're going to do a formula. Okay, so you can start off with anything else bar equals. Okay, and equals is a formula. Okay, so I'm going to remove what I've just been doing here, and there's a couple of ways I can do that. I can come up. So I'm using the cursor keys here. You can see I can move this arrow around with the cursor keys, and I'm going to come up and I'm going to select delete on my keyboard. Okay, and that wipes it out. And then I realise, actually, no, do you know what? I didn't want to delete it, so I'm going to use the undo. So I'm going to come up to edit, and I'm going to choose undo clear. And undo just takes away whatever the last thing you did was. So the last thing I did was delete it. So when I undo that, it puts something back. Okay, does that make sense? If I undo it again, it undoes the last thing. Well, the last thing I did was put it back, so now it makes it disappear. And I'm just going to click in undo, and it's going back and undoing all the different things. And I think the next thing, the picture will vanish. So undo. Now, the opposite of undo is redo. So I can redo things. So I can put the picture back. I can add the words back in. I can add the numbers back in.
Just without the plaque.
It there because it got a bit loud. So I'm just going to show you now a couple more things. So under the file menu, okay, we've got the option to print something. Okay, just exactly the same as in many different programs. But one of the big differences between a spreadsheet and printing is we can't actually tell where the edge of the spreadsheet is initially on the default layout. Okay, so you can see we've got all these rows, and I can scroll down. Look, I've gone down 250 rows there. So that's row 250. Where's it all going to fit onto on a page? Okay. So it's hard to tell where it's going to print, but let's have a little look. Let's do so obviously you can't see any printouts that I do, but one way around that is to do a print preview. So a print preview will show you how a page will look when it's printed out. And the first thing you'll notice is that all the cell lines don't appear when you print them out. That is an optional option too. You can have them print out, but most of the time you don't want to. You know, they can be quite distracting. Okay, so what I did there was I used print preview to do a preview of where it's going to print out. But that's also going to be a little bit of a pain to keep having to go into this every single time. So there's a couple of ways, a couple of things you can do to get around this. We can sort of see that we easily include, we can see any words, and there's a bit of a gap to the right of that. So I'm just going to close that. So under the options, so I'm going to tools, and at the bottom of tools, or near the bottom, and if I just hover over the expand, you'll see it is actually the very bottom command. Under tools, one of the tabs, so these are all different tabs: save, international, error checking. We don't have to worry about what they all mean, but one of them is called view. And in view, one of the options right down here is page break. So it doesn't matter whether you do this or not, but I'm just going to show you what it does. Press OK, and we can now see a thicker dotted line, and this is representing an A4 page. Okay, so you can use that as a guide when you're laying things out. But we might even want to go one step further than that. And I want to print out the introduction to spreadsheets. I don't want that 1, 2, 3, so I'm just going to highlight that and press delete. But I don't want to delete this any words, but I don't want it printing out. And as you can see, it is within the page border. So I'm just going to show you one little trick that you can do, is that you can select a region. Okay, I've just clicked and dragged, so I'll just do it again. I click, I hold my finger on the mouse, and I drag out to select a whole bunch of cells. I let go. And then under File, I've got Related to Print, so we just looked at Print Preview, and just above there's one called Print Area. And what we've got is we've got Set Print Area. So setting the print area, I'm just going to click that, it's done, okay? And I can click off it, and you can see that the dotted line has actually moved, okay, around the area we just selected. And when I now choose Print Preview, which will show me exactly how it will look on a printed out piece of paper, we can see that it's just printing out the area we've selected, okay? It's any words are not in there, okay? It's still printing out to the same size piece of paper, but it will just print out that. So I'm just going to do a couple of things. I'm just going to turn off that page break again, to go into Tools, Options, View, and untick page break, because I don't actually need that for the rest of the session. And then I'm just going to actually remove that print area that we previously had defined. So I'm going to go to Clear Print Area, and that will remove the print area that I previously set. And the way we can check that is we can go to Print Preview again, and this time we see that the any words are back there. Okay? So the last bit on the sort of printing side is in the page setup, and you can see that everything that we've been talking about, so you've got print preview, print area, they're all, can you see they're all divided by, they're all in like one section, so they sort of all appear to be related. We'll just have a very quick look at page setup, and under page setup, the only thing that I would suggest we do for the time being is you can choose whether your page setup is portrait or landscape. Okay, so I'm just going to choose landscape because before it's portrait. So portrait is sort of more vertical, landscape is more horizontal. And then when I go to print preview, you'll now see that we get that landscape. So it's just like we've turned an A4 piece of paper to make the longest edge run horizontally. I had to have a little think about my horizontals and verticals there. Okay, so that's that. And lastly, I showed you before that this the picture and the toolbar pops up. Well, the other thing we can do is we can resize. So we've got these sort of handles. How many of there are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 handles. Yeah. So we've got 8 handles here, and we can just do a bunch of things. So if we roll over one of the handles, the actual icon changes to 2 arrows, and we can make it smaller, and then we can move it. So what I'm doing here is I can change the size, so I can resize an image. Okay, I can move it to top left hand corner, I can move it anywhere I want to. And let's just try, well, I'm going to put it about like this as a hunch and see what happens if I went to print preview. And I'm thinking it's going to be cut off. There you go. So what happens now is it will now print out 2 pages, and you can see one of the immediate problems that you get when you don't show the layout is that things are going to get cut off like that. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to and if I wanted to see the layout again, just like we did before, Tools, Options, View, Page Breaks, press OK, and I can see that dotted line. So now I know that if I want it to be in the corner, if I want it to be on the sheet when it's printed out, it has to be, that should be the bottom right hand corner, and I can just do a quick check, and there it is, looking pretty. Okay, so that's great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open a new document. So I'm going to use the toolbar. So before we may have gone File, Open, and you can see that next to the word Open is a picture of the icon. Okay, and that icon represents how it looks on the toolbar. So we can see here. So I'm going to choose Open. I'm going to go to my desktop, and I've got one that I created yesterday called Budget. Okay, and here is a random budget that I've made up. It's not my own. So I've just put in a whole bunch of different things I could think of. And what you'll notice about it straight away is that although all the data is there, it's really not very easy to see it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to just have a look now at just the different ways we can format a layout just to make it look better. Okay, because so much of spreadsheets is actually constructing it to be appealing to the viewer. There's no point in having something that's really hard to view. The tools are meant to make life easier, and to make life easier, sometimes you have to have a little bit of an eye for just creating it and just making it look as sort of as pretty and as easy to read as possible. Okay, so what have we got going on here? So the first thing I notice is that some of these words are longer than the cell is wide. So this says British Telecom, but you can see on the sheet we only can see the C. However, this one we can see all of it. So what's going on there? How come on these ones they're getting cut off, yet this top one we can read all of it? And the answer is it depends on if there's anything in the cell next to it. If there's something in the cell next to it, as there is here, we've got the number 21, well then that needs to be shown. There's something in that cell, you've got to show it. Okay? So it truncates, it cuts off what's being shown in the previous cell. But as there is nothing in this cell here, okay, then this one that says monthly outgoings 2009 just says, hey, I don't care, I'm going to go for it. And I'm actually no, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to carry on. What I'm going to do is, this is the title. Okay, I want to make this bigger. Okay, so just like you might do in Word. Okay, so over here we've got the font. So this is in Calibri and it's size 12. Well, let's make this size, I don't know, 18. Okay, and you actually notice there that the cell got taller to accommodate the width. That doesn't always automatically happen, but it's nice that it did. And so the next thing the initial thing I was looking at actually was the width of this cell. Now watch this. As I move my cursor around, you can see that it's a cross. Okay, it's a white cross. I've come up into this column. I'm in the B column, and it's now an arrow pointing downwards. And the reason it is that is because it will allow me to select the whole column. That's not what I want to do though, so I'm just clicking off it. Watch what happens to the cursor as I get into the gap between A and B. As I get into the gap between A and B, the cursor changes to a line with arrows either side of it. This enables me to change the width of the column. It's not particularly technical, and all I have to do is click and I hold on my mouse and I can drag this wider. Okay? And I can see that I probably want to go another few millimeters there. So I've dragged it out wider than, so it's wider than anything I've got going on my page there. okay? And I can also do it with the height of a column, all right? That obviously looks awful. I don't like it. Now, I could try and put it back exactly where it was. Oh, but that's a bit fiddly to try and get it back. So what am I going to do? I'm going to use undo. And I'm going to come up to the tool and I'm going to click, and I probably did it about 3 times there. It's going to go big, and now I'm going to undo it back. Because undoing it, I know will take it back to exactly the size it was before I did something to it. Okay, so we've made the title big. What else have we got? So all of the other data seems to fit in, and we've got a monthly total down at the bottom. Now that monthly total seems to me to be a little bit close. I think it would benefit from being just a line away. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one of them, and I'm going to cut it. Okay, we've got cut and copy. All right, so I'm going to go up to edit. Copy would leave it there, and when you paste it, you get a duplicate. Cut removes the original and puts it somewhere else. Okay, so I'm going to cut it out. Notice it doesn't disappear, but it all starts to flash. I'm going to select the column below it, and I'm going to choose paste. And this time I'm just going to press the toolbar shortcut for paste. All right, and that's moved it down. Okay. What I now want to do is I want to move the rest of the row. I could have done this all at once, but I wanted to show you the principle. But now I'm going to do the same thing, but instead of doing it with one, I'm going to do it with lots of them. So I select the whole row, okay, bar the monthly total. I'm going to choose cut. I'm going to click down, and I don't have to like re-drag it out. I just click where I want the first leftmost one to be, and I do paste. Okay, and now we can see that it's all moved down one. Okay. I'm just going to close that off so we can carry on seeing this. So that's moved that down. That's looking a little bit easier on the eye. We're beginning to get a little somewhere. The next thing I want to introduce you to is this idea of borders. Right? So I'm just going to select a bunch of squares, and you can see that actually when you select something, you can see it draws a border around it. We get a thicker black line, and that can be quite useful. That can draw our attention to certain areas. It's just selecting, so as soon as I click anywhere else, it disappears. But it might be nice if we can actually have that create and stay. So let's have a go at doing that. I'm going to draw a box around the whole thing, and then I'm going to come up and I'm going to just click on the little down arrow next to this icon. Okay, and this little down arrow just means that there's something more hidden behind it. You can see there's down arrows next to quite a few of these things. So if I click on the little down arrow just to the right hand side, we then get a whole we get 12 more options, right? And as I hover over them, it tells me in the little yellow pop-up what they actually refer to. Okay, so what I would like to do is, I'm going to choose thick border box. All right, and what that's going to do is it's going to draw a thick. So this is an outside. This is a thinner line. You can see that it's thinner on the actual little preview picture there. And so I'm just going to choose a thick border box. And let's see what happens. So I click on it. You can't actually see anything, but when I click somewhere else, we can now see that we've drawn a black line all the way around. Okay, there is one there, but we just can't see it because it's hit the edge of the spreadsheet. But it is actually there. So let's draw another one. I want to segregate off the months just to make them easier to see. Now I don't always have to click on the down arrow if the one I want is now in that window, and the last one you've always chosen will appear in that window. So I'm just going to click it and see what happens. And look, again we've got a thick border there, and I'm just going to do the same now, coming down this side. Yeah. So we're beginning to segregate and divide off this content. Okay. Now, so we've got these thicker lines. It still might be even nicer still if, because if we were to look at the print preview, good, okay, interesting. So first thing is I've got the paper round the wrong way. Okay, so the first thing I'd want to do is go to page setup. So I'll just quickly go into page setup, and I'll just choose landscape, and I'll just choose OK. And we can see that we're actually going to get cut off around about August here. But for the purpose of what we're doing at the moment, we'll assume that this isn't going to be printed out. But what I actually wanted to show you from the print preview was that we're getting the thick black lines, but still it's not as easy to read as it could be. And so what we can actually do is I'm going to select all the data, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to choose all borders, and you can see that the preview for this one is all of the different lines are intersected. And when I click on that, look, it draws borders out for all of them. And if I went to print preview, we could see now it's a little bit easier to see. Okay, although we have lost our thicker borders because it's replaced them all with thin lines. So I've clearly started out the wrong way. So I'm going to go back in now, and I'm going to put a thick border around it, and that's looking better. And then I'm going to put a thick border around this one, and then I'm going to put a thick border around that one. Okay, and you can see that our thicker borders are running over the top of our thinner borders. Okay, and I'm going to, and there's other options. So some of them, you can see that this one's got 2 lines at the bottom of it, top and double bottom. So that's going to draw 1 line along the top and a double line along the bottom of all the cells we've selected. And sure enough, now we've got 2 lines along the bottom there. So that looks quite good. Okay, but there's only so far you can go with borders, and I've probably gone too far already. Let's look about colouring things in. Let's look about applying some shading to a cell. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to click and hold, and then from here I'm going to choose a colour, and I'm going to choose a grey. What I generally say is that when you're filling in the boxes, so I'm just going to choose 25% grey, so I'm just going to click and hold on that. It's nice and easy to read still. What you don't want to do is choose, you don't want to choose a dark colour, because then the black text is lost and hidden against that dark colour. It's very hard to see. So I'm just going to undo that. So you really want to stick to the lighter colours unless you change the colour of your text. So we've got one here for filling the colour of the boxes in. We've got another one here for filling the colour of the text in, which I hadn't selected. So I'm not actually going to leave it like this because I don't really like it. But you can see light with a dark background works, or dark text with a light background works. Okay? So I'm just going to undo that. I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut this time. I'm going to do Control-Z to undo that a few times. So I'm going to remove that. So that looks quite good, and I'm just going to come down here, and again I'm going to apply that same light grey fill down here. Okay, so I'm just like, so now we're beginning to see that it's beginning to be a little bit more readable, but still the eye often needs lines to follow, and one nice way of doing it is to select a whole row, okay, and I'm just going to fill this in a very light green, say. I'm not a big fan of that colour, but I'm just going to keep with it just because it's just for example purposes. And you can see what I'm doing here is I'm selecting every other row, and I'm just clicking on the fill bucket. Okay, selecting every other row and clicking on the fill bucket. Click, drag across, press the fill bucket there. Okay, and now it actually looks a lot better to see. Now this totals is obviously quite important, so what I'm going to do, because it's I'm going to make it bigger. So how do we make something bigger? Well, we go up and we choose a better size font. I'm going to choose size 16 font here. Now what does that do? Well, that pushes me past my edge there. So I'm going to come up, and you'll find this all the time. You won't make one decision and it'll just be set and work for you. As you change things around, the whole spreadsheet will change. So now we've got all our monthly totals going across the bottom. The next thing I'm thinking is, I think they would look better centered. They're set up against the right hand side of the box, and I just think they'd look better centered. So up here we've got, at the moment they are aligned to the right. I could put them in the middle, or I could align them to the left. I think they'd look better centered. And I also think this would look better centered as well. Okay, let's see whether these look better centered or not. I'm not sure. I think they probably look better. Let's have a look. Right aligned, maybe. I'm going to stick with how they were left aligned. Okay, so I'm actually going to go for that thick box as well around there. I think that would look better. And you can see it's a sort of a process of discovering and trying out different ways of doing things. So I think you'll agree that looks somewhat better. I want to show you one last thing. So at the moment we've got cells, I've got something in cell 1, but I'd actually like this to be in the middle. Now I could try and guess which cell is the middle, and you can see that it spreads out over all of B and some of C because there's no text. Remember, if I was to put any text in here, it would immediately contract the previous one, so I'll just delete it. But what I would like to do is I'd like to have it centered above all of these, so I'm just going to use one more tool, and I'm going to highlight all these, and I'm going to press this button here, and it says merge and center, and it's a lovely easy button. It will merge all these cells into one, and it will center whatever's in the contents of them. And it says, it's basically saying, basically this is saying if there was stuff in other of these cells, they're gone. It's only take the things from the upper left cell only. But that's fine. Don't really worry about that. Press OK. And there we go. We've centered something a little bit in the center of the screen there. So we're going to end very shortly. What I'd like to show you is the difference that formatting made. So bear in mind we've made no changes to any of the content of this. We haven't amended any of the totals. We haven't amended any of the text on the screen. We've made like cosmetic changes. I'll show you a little trick. Great little trick this is. You've got the A here, and you've got the 1 here, and then up in the top left-hand corner, between those two, if I press that button, if I select that cell, it selects the whole thing. Everything's gone selected. And under Edit, there's Clear. There's a few different types of clears. Okay, Clear All is just like delete everything. Everything goes. In fact, I'll show you. Oh God, it's all gone. All right, but no problem because we've always got our friend undo. So I'm going to undo that. Okay. What I'd like to show you is that we've also got Clear Formats. So all the formatting that we've applied, all the different size fonts, all the different borders around boxes, all the different colours and things like that, that's all formatting. So none of our data will go. So whenever I clear formats, and there. So same document, same spreadsheet, and then I'm going to undo the clear formatting. So there it is one way, and there it is again with formatting. So it didn't take me long to do that formatting, but you can see it makes such a dramatic difference to its readability. It's so much easier to see like that it's just so much worth doing, and that's a very important part of the qualification. A very important part is to make things look readable, look presentable. They must do what they set out to do, and one of the things is readability, presentation. It's making sure you can convey that information in a clear and concise way. Okay, so that's it for today's lecture, and next week we will look at formulas in much greater detail.